so we're just a brief pause. And now the pause is over. So let's go ahead and call our meeting to order. Some quick introductions of folks up at the table with me. To my right, Superintendent Degner, Directors Pilcher Hayek, Eastham, and Williams. To my left, Vice President Malone, Directors Clausen and Finch. And a special thank you to our stand-in recording secretary, Amanda Yates, up at the table there. The public is reminded that if they wish to speak, they do need to complete a speaker form out in the lobby, and we'll get to those during the community comment portion. But first up on our agenda is our education showcase, and I don't know who's going to lead us off with that.
Mr. Howard's going to take this one for us, so go ahead,
All
Eric.
right.
Great. Thank you, Matt. And thanks, Ward. One of the components of our Grow Our Own program is to help support staff become teachers. In partnership with the Iowa City Foundation and the Green State Credit Union, we were able to provide that support for 10 of our employees starting this August. Several of the candidates for the cohort are here with us today, and I'm going to just ask them to come up and introduce themselves and the area that they're interested in teaching. One at a time, just come up and introduce yourselves. And
let's go.
Yes. Hi, I'm Tasia McCloskey. I am at Kirkwood Elementary, and I am going to school for elementary.
Is it this mic?
Yeah.
Hey, I'm Aaron Martin. Currently work at North Central Junior High, and I'm going into PE teaching.
My name's Becca Bender, and I am currently at Coralville Central Elementary, and I'm going to go into becoming a school counselor.
Yeah.
My name is Nicole Berry. I'm currently at Weber Elementary, and I'm going into Special Ed Strat 1.
Hi, I'm Sully Serena. I'm currently working online with the online program. I've been a paraeducator for 12 years, and I'm going to school to pursue my bachelor's in elementary education to teach ELL.
Hello, my name is Yorick Ledger, and I am currently at Mann Elementary, and my plan is to go into special education.
Good evening. My name is Mahmoud Al-Taib. I'm one of the building substitute at Grandwood Elementary. I'm planning to teach business pretty soon.
so also selected, but couldn't make it with us here today, are Wesley Kelly, who's interested in becoming a secondary special ed teacher, Meg Tissinger, who's interested in being a librarian, and Javier Diaz, who wants to be an elementary teacher. We're really excited with this cohort. We had over 80 applicants, and we're excited to see what's in store for them. So thanks for allowing us to do this showcase here today.
All right. Thank you. That makes my heart happy. All right. We can move into our community comment portion. Just a reminder that you will have 4 minutes to speak. We have Donna Ohms.
Thank you, and I'm so impressed that you got my name right.
I remembered.
It's a tricky one. Thank you. I really appreciate that. So forgive me, I'm going to jump around a little bit just to finish up some thoughts of some previous times talking about Weber. So as you already said, my name's Donna Ohms. I have 3 kids at Weber Elementary. So one thing I ended on last time was leadership is creating the condition in which others can be successful. So one thing I've been looking at is that when staff are operating at their capacity in a disorderly environment, there's no more margin to be proactive and implement the PBIS framework like is intended, and it seems like it would work. So I want to tell about a situation that happened for me on a personal level, my 5th grade daughter wore braids to school and came home and told me that somebody told her that she was racist because she did that. And I'm like, wow, that's a teachable moment to have a conversation, have some people come to the table and talk about that. Also hurt my heart a little bit, but talk to her, seemed like she handled it okay. The next day, she comes home and said, well, yesterday somebody took a picture of me at school with the braids and posted it on TikTok. And I'm like, you're a 5th grader. I thought like phones weren't allowed. And so that's a problem to me because it sounds like it probably wasn't in a nice way, you know, posted. So tried to find it, couldn't find it myself. TikTok's a black hole. But I got curious about the school policy on cell phones. And in the handbook, the code of conduct, there's no clear policy. It was, at least to a layperson outside the district reading it, I was like, this says they're okay, and they're not okay, and who's gonna implement it? It was very unclear. I did talk to my school administrators, and I felt like they handled it well enough, but I also thought that, wow, aren't we missing out on an opportunity here? There was no further conversation with my daughter or with me, and I thought, wow, we want to have restorative circles. I hear about them. I fully will say I don't fully know what they are, but I wonder, like, this could have been a really teachable moment in a situation that I think was relatively safe, to learn about why might have she said they were racist. My daughter had no clue, and I tried to talk to her about as best I could, but I felt like I couldn't bring to the table any other voices. And so I'm curious, what if we take those situations and make them more teachable? What if we look at the student handbook to make consequences for those simple infractions clearer? I compared to several other schools that are top rated in the country of student handbooks, and found that all of them say cell phones will be taken away and not given back until a parent comes and gets them. There's nothing like that in our handbook. So I know that we've brought to you several situations that are complicated issues. I thought with the cell phone thing and the student code of conduct, that's a simple rule clarification that can go forward and not be stuck in how are we going to do this. So I know I have just a little bit of time. I'm going to jump around to, I was comparing different sizes of schools. Weber's the largest in the district, as I'm sure you're aware of, and it's more comparable to school sizes like junior highs. Whereas there is no presence of an official care assessment team, and there's only one counselor and one student family advocate. Whereas junior highs that are more comparative with the student population have 2 counselors. So I just would urge you to consider looking at the numbers and the student population that is served there. Thank you so much for taking the time and caring about our students.
Thank you. And that was our only slip tonight, so we will go ahead and move into our next item, which is the approval of tonight's agenda, and I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
All right. Amanda, I think we're ready to vote. I'm going to call you Kim probably 4 times tonight.
Online voting is open. No.
It'll get here.
It's coming.
Motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right, thank you. And we can move into our consent agenda. And as always, I would ask directors if they had any questions after reviewing the bills they wanted to bring forward.
No, I didn't.
All right. Any items directors would like to pull from our very lengthy consent agenda?
I don't want to pull any items, just clarification. I'm assuming this is just when all these contracts come due and we get slammed with 50 different.
There's a lot of end of the year stuff. I think all the hard surface repair things all came up and they're all individually listed on there. That's like
Yeah, I think there's
15 of them or something.
Sorry.
I don't know if you had anything else. I know there are some end of year kind of things.
Yeah, I think what just really added to it was the hard surface repair work that all came to a head there at once. So that's about, like Sean was just saying, 15 different consent items that got added there, and a few other contracts as we look at the beginning of the school year next year. But it was really those hard surface repair items that added to the length of the consent agenda.
If there aren't any items to pull, I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve consent agenda.
Second.
All right, Amanda?
Online voting is open. Motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. And that takes us to our public hearing. Director Malone.
Public hearing for the 2021-22 certified budget amendment. Now is the time and place for the public hearing on the district's proposed FY 2022 certified budget amendment. Notice of public hearing was published in the Iowa City Press Citizen on May 9th, 2022. Are there any comments from the board? Is there anyone from the community that would like to advise or provide comments to the board on the proposed FY 2022 budget amendment?
All right, we can close the public hearing. We can go right into policy review, and just remind everybody, it's maybe a short conversation, but we have the review period, and then a little bit later here, we're going to take action. This is our second reading on the 7, 8s, and 900s. We've met again with P&G right before this meeting, and didn't have any more updates for these series, but if there's anything that directors wanted to bring up on these 3 series, now would be a good time. They're pretty minor changes from the last time. All right, looks like we're ready to move on into our discussion items. And first up is our health and safety update. Matt?
Yeah, good evening again, everybody. For our health and safety update tonight, I have 2 items. One specific to COVID. That you've probably seen from your email traffic. The 8th Circuit Court did vacate the original temporary injunction that the district court had granted, and so that is what allowed us to be able to require masks in the school district. So if we would get back to a conversation about that at any point, we would have some new information that we would have to consider there, some new guidance that we would need to follow. It did seem that they still left room for students that could access face coverings via a different law, basically talking about our IDEA eligible students and entitled students, that there could be an avenue for them to ask for some mask requirement for the students around them, as we talked about that process earlier in the school year as well. And so just wanted to probably draw the public's attention to that has been changed. They cited some things around that the situation's different now than when that original ruling was made. And so it seems like there was some weird, I guess maybe weird isn't the best word for it, some auspicious kind of room left that they could come back and look at this again at a different time if the situation were to change. But that's the guidance we've received from legal counsel to this point. The other item I would mention is just a follow-up to the Mercer Park shots fired situation that we had a couple weeks ago, and that we've been working collaboratively with the City of Iowa City and the Iowa City Police Department around additional security measures down at Mercer Park when our students are either congregating there after school or participating in activities in the Mercer Rec Center or out on the ball fields, as we know our baseball teams started their season. So I think that's been a good conversation, a good relationship with them, and they've taken some additional measures with having officers on additional patrols or on site in the really high traffic opportunities for us. And so I wanted to thank them for their collaboration in that work, and just provide you guys a brief update around that work as well. So happy to answer any questions on either of those items, but that was my update for health and safety this evening.
I met with a couple of the police officers, and they wanted to make very clear that it was random that it was at Mercer. It has nothing to do with that part of town, that neighborhood, or anything, and they've really, they feel confident that they are finding the individuals involved and dealing with it. My own children play at Mercer several times a week, including the last 2 weeks. I feel like it's a great great neighborhood. So we're lucky to have that campus.
Thank you, Maka. Any other comments, directors, on the topic? Anything further from the team, Matt? All right, let's move on to our next item, our equity update.
All right, and I don't know if Amy's going to give any intro to it, but I know Laura Daly is planning to provide us an update around kind of our last professional development opportunities that we had this school year.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks again for the opportunity to give some focus and highlight on the professional development that's occurred this year related to effective teaching practices in the classroom to support social emotional behavioral health, to implement social emotional learning strategies, and to implement culturally responsive teaching practices. We finished our last of the PD series in early May and analyzed our pre and post assessment results. And one thing to highlight and to report back was the overall rating from the PD sessions from the teachers and even support staff that participated in the PD webinars was on a scale of 1 to 5, an overall relevancy rating of 4.25. And I think that speaks to the deliberate kind of nature that a lot of people to put this together went through last year when we do our social emotional behavioral action planning process that schools go through to identify their data analysis protocols for behavior referrals as well as attendance, and taking a look at the practices that they're focusing on using the PBIS framework and implementing SEL practices. The main feedback and information that we got from the schools was that they really needed and wanted to focus on universal classroom practices, really to support the students in the classroom setting, which we know that's where they spend all day. That's where they are. And so hearing that from the schools last spring, that's why we created and worked with Laura Gray and her team as well to kind of continue the culturally responsive teaching that they embarked on last year, and to dig a little deeper and to align that with the SEL practices that was part of our PD as well. So I know all of the board members have access to a document that many of you said there's so much information on there. It's from that work session last week or 2 weeks ago. But we did just link into that document in case you're interested in looking at it, just the overall PD summary feedback. There's some graphs and charts in there. It's at the top, so you don't have to scroll all the way down. And then one of the things that we have really emphasized this spring and noticed as really a strong point is that, although these PBIS effective classroom practices that align with culturally responsive teaching and support social emotional learning, we've been implementing and working on those for years in a variety of different ways. The great thing that we have recognized is that we're embarking on the high reliability schools framework. And those first levels, level 1 is all about that safe, supportive, collaborative school and classroom environments. And so we kind of couldn't have planned it any better that just the PD that we implemented this year, the content, the strategies, the practices, just feed so well right into those leading, those critical indicators that we're in the midst of learning about as a district and ready to roll out, I guess, next school year. We're in the midst of all of that. And so one of the things, each time we just also collected open comments from staff members, and we continued to get just a range of feedback, of course, but one of the things was just one highlight that was constant through all of it was just the need to continue to work on the support of sustainability and implementation. So we know that sometimes when we really work hard and implement, great I just said great PD, but effective strategies and practices for the teaching staff, it can't just be one and done. We can't just present it and then just expect it to magically happen. And so one of the things we received a great deal of feedback on from our a variety of people in the teacher leadership program, such as our instructional design specialists, our coaches, was just how helpful it was to have the tools and resources just handy and available to continue to use when they're coaching. You know, they're in the midst of a coaching cycle with a group of teachers or individual teachers. And so I think that will really be helpful, and we'll do our best to continually refer back to these resources as well. Because again, it's not just about this school year, it's about continuing to use it and implement it moving forward. And then next year, I think some of the ways that this will look like is instead of doing all district PD in this capacity, what this year achieved was really setting the foundation. We know that a webinar for all teachers across the district might not be the absolute best format. That was just the format that we needed to use in the midst of planning for, when we started to plan this, that was kind of the best format, of course. But the great thing now is we've got all the recordings, we've got all the resources, and we will be able to refer back to those as we continue to move forward. And another thing that's a good reminder is that in addition to the SEBH action planning process that this really kind of was a springboard from, was also last year through that PBIS Rethinking Discipline work group. There was also a recognition of wanting to really strengthen and hone in on the universal classroom practices. That was a recommendation from that group as well. And so some of the things that we're continuing to work on, we'll continue to make those connections with, are just to continually work with kind of everyone in the district and not just have it be, equity is all of our work, culturally responsive teaching is all of our work, social emotional learning is all of our work. And so just to help roll that out district-wide was really helpful to kind of raise the awareness and to really see that, we're all in this together. And there are some effective evidence-based classroom practices that if we just focus on those and not try to do it all, we hopefully will continue to get better and better results, and kids will have better and better experiences in the classroom and within their schools. So I'm happy to field any additional questions, and wanted to just provide a verbal overview summary that we kind of wrapped up for this year, but it's not done. We want to continue to, the focus now is sustainability and implementation and support for the great work that our teachers are already doing.
Laura, speaking of the great work teachers are doing, as you probably know, one or more of the high schools, I think, journalism groups have published, or groups in the high school have published social media things that highlight what students report about their experience with different classrooms in their school. And they're just amazing for me, anyway, to read. So I don't know if they fit in within your professional development structure or not, but if they do, to me, they would be great. And I just want, I hope we all, I'm sure board members have noticed them by now. And if they can be made more widely known, that would be great, because what students say about what makes a difference in their academic life and their student life is in large part their relationship with teachers.
Absolutely.
And it's just so vitally important, and it's so clear from those examples.
I appreciate you mentioning that. And one of the things I think we did highlight one of the previous months was not directly from the students, but I think that would be a great way to enhance our work moving forward, to have their voice captured. And this practice helped me feel a sense of belonging, or when my teacher does this, this is how I can better focus or feel connected to the school environment. A lot of the videos and clips were either from organizations that help educational institutions provide PDs. There were little video clips with student voices that would say things like that, as well as we would just go out to the schools and try to record and show a little clip of one of our district teachers, many of our district teachers over the different PD sessions that we offered, showing them implementing the practice. And so I think it's really important and to get student voice in there, as you're saying, Charlie, and then also to highlight that many of these practices are occurring on a regular, everyday basis. We have so many great things happening, and to focus on that and to help others kind of, that's part of the collaborative environment of the HRS is through that professional learning community PLC process, to really have our teachers learn from each other and watch each other teach and interact. Then that really strengthens, the student experience. So I really value that level of input, because that's what we're trying to get at, is to say, this is what works for me as a student, in the classroom. And there's some universal strategies that are going to work for basically all kids, but then there's some specific things that you can do or teachers can do to customize or individualize it for certain kids or groups of kids, because that's important that we hear their voice in that process.
I have a question about, moving forward now that we've kind of laid that baseline. So what's the plan to differentiate, like an a la carte kind of a thing where people can kind of choose what they most need learning on?
Yeah, that's another great question. I would say we already have a little bit of an a la carte process. What we hadn't had before is the universal foundational, everyone is, here's the plan. Here's the things that really we know through educational research have the highest likelihood to provide a safe, supportive, collaborative environment. Because what we already typically do, and this isn't just through my department, but through a variety of departments, is provide building-based or building leadership team consultation, guidance, finding resources, sitting in at PBIS meetings, sitting in during building leadership team meetings, for example, providing either on the spot or just that timely feedback and job-embedded PD. So that already is the thing that's occurring the most. And so I think the enhancement was getting that foundational knowledge really rolled out this year, and then we'll continue that. So through that social emotional behavioral health SEBH action planning process, each school analyzes their data, takes a look at the areas that they're focusing on, how it enhances academics, because really, remember, this is all about our scholars getting to that academic mindset and being independent learners and thinkers. And so making that connection, so then when they submit their main priorities in the action planning process, then our team looks at that and kind of divides and conquers and provides, hey, we'll work alongside you during a Thursday PD that you're going to implement at your building level, for example. Or we'll come out and take part in your student support team meeting or PBIS team or building leadership meeting and help provide resources or help facilitate things. Or we'll connect you with something from Grantwood AEA because they can be a valuable resource, for example. So I think it's really important that that continues to happen, and especially with the high reliability schools, as each school does that part of the assessment and kind of identifies where their main areas of focus and strengths are as well.
I wonder, thank you for that. So we have building PD, district PD. Now that we've, folks have Zoom, we've got online, could it get to the point where maybe a building might need something, but maybe there are individual teachers all over the district who all identify an area where we could put together some, building level, district level, individual level, where we can meet virtually and just dig deeper on some of these topics.
Yeah.
I'm going to add two things there. Your question made me think about both content/resources and then those avenues to get it to people, right? And so I think with that last meeting that we had around mental health and Laura's list of resources there, right? One of you said that time, gosh, this can be overwhelming because there's so much content that they've developed, right, or pulled together. So I do think they've done a tremendous, tremendous job doing that. And now it's that kind of warehousing of that material as well, because as we jump into HRS and we think about those 8 leading indicators for level 1, right? Buildings are gonna have to assess, self-assess, or get their feedback from their surveys about where they're at in those various places. And then as I self-identify kind of where they need to go, whether that's PLC focus, safe and secure building, they can really tap back into the resources that have been developed. And I'm not saying that's the end-all be-all, that we won't have to continue to do that, but their team has certainly developed a plethora of resources for us to go to. The other thing I would add that's going to be, and I can't remember if I mentioned this at the work session last time, is we've had the elementary principal, IDS principal meeting once a month for years now, and next year, Nick did a nice job of starting that just with an academic piece the last year or so with the secondary folks. We're gonna expand that to also add an SCBH component for the secondary group, so that's another way for us to constantly be in front of that team around those items. Now, you're talking about just-in-time PD though, so it's kind of twofold, right? You got a list of resources that you can access, but here's kind of our way that we're gonna upkeep or present kind of the new things there. So thank you for that question.
Yeah, thanks.
I think what will be helpful is, both of you just said exactly, if you put that together, is that at the end of the year, next year, as you've implemented HRS and we're working through it, you're gonna be able to maybe show us an example of one building did this as a flow chart using leading and lagging indicators, you know, and then another building, this is what worked. I think that'll be really good for us as a board. It'll be easier for us to understand that there won't be a one-size-fits-all, as you're saying, but that HRS provides the formula for how to make that happen.
Anything else, directors, on this? Did you guys have any more things you'd like to add before we move on? I don't want to cut people off if they got things to say. All right, that moves us into yet another very lengthy section of our action items. We might have hit a record here. First up is our certified budget amendment, which we just had the public hearing on. And it's kind of a statutory requirement, but Les, give us a quick briefing on it.
Yes, this is an annual process that we do at Iowa City Community School District to amend the budget. You are able to amend it as many times as you want during the year, but holding a public hearing every time you want to do that becomes cumbersome. So we do it one time a year prior to the last time you can do it without some of the challenges, which is May 31st. And so that's why you'll see it at the end of May each year. But it's just kind of a reminder that we actually set the 4 statutory lines of the certified budget in April of 2021, and a lot has changed in our world and in our school district in that year in terms of some of the budgets and some of the resources. And so this just brings us up to speed with some of those things and allows us what those carryovers are from, you know, our facilities plan. While it's winding down now, it still does change from within the year and all of the ESSER resources. So it's just a chance to actually kind of catch up to where we've been operating and guiding the district from a practical perspective throughout the whole year. So it's a formal process for that.
Thank you, Les. Any questions from directors on that? All right, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the fiscal year 2021-22 certified budget amendment.
Second.
All right, Amanda, get your typing fingers ready.
Online voting is open. Motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right, thank you. Next one up is our 700 series. We had a couple times to talk about it, so I would just entertain the motion.
I move that we approve the 700 series.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All right, Amanda.
Online voting is open. Motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. And next up would be the 800 series. Entertain the motion.
I move we pass the 800 series, Building and Sites.
Second.
All right, Amanda. We're making you work hard on your stand-in day.
Online voting is open. Motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
And lather, rinse, repeat on the 900 series.
Move that we approve the 900 series.
Second.
All right, Amanda. Everybody's so quiet and serious, trying to liven it up here a little bit.
Online voting is open. Motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right, thank you. Next up is resolution on save revenue. I think we're probably going to get a little bit of preamble on this one. Les?
Yes. The next two are both in relation to the upcoming borrowing of save revenue bonds to fund our FMP 2.0. The first one is a resolution that allows the SAVE Fund to reimburse the PEPAL Fund for the expenditures for some of the planning and design work that's happening right now, and we can go back 60 days and recapture those expenditures against the SAVE dollars when they're actually received later this summer. So that's what the first resolution does. It allows us to do that and approves that process. And the second one just sets the date for the public hearing about the sale of the bonds. And so over the course of the next couple of meetings throughout the summer, you will have additional action items to take doing that. None of this is my work. It's all the legal work of our bond counsel from Allers. So if you see their fingerprints on it, that's why it's following their instructions pretty closely. So.
All right, thanks, Les. Any questions from directors on this? All right, let's take item 5 then. I would entertain the motion.
I move we pass the reimbursement resolution for save revenue bonds 2022.
Second.
All right, Amanda?
Online voting is open. Motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. And the other one Les referred to, I think I would entertain the motion on that one as well.
I move that we pass the resolution for fixing the date of public hearing for save revenue bonds.
Second.
All right, Amanda, ready to vote?
Online voting is open. Motion carries with all but directors voting in favor.
Thank you. And we have our last 5 items are all negotiated agreements. And first up is the teachers. I don't know if we are going to have any lead in from anybody, or I mean we've got the information.
Yeah, not a substantial lead in, other than just to say thank you to our different negotiated groups and to Brady for his leadership in this process and the HR team. That's, I think, what you see here is the result of that collaborative relationship that we talk about all the time, and how we're able to have an expedited process, a collaborative process, and one that leaves people feeling valued at the end of it. And so we're thankful for that, and thankful for Brady and his leadership in that regard, representing the different groups. And so we just have those for your consideration and approval tonight.
And I'd also offer my thanks to board directors if they sat in on any of those negotiations. I know kind of divvied it up as best we could. So I appreciate all the time and effort that folks did. You as well, Brady, for sure. All right, so number 7 is the teachers. I would entertain the motion.
I move we approve the negotiated agreement between the ICEA and ICSD for teachers 22-23 school year.
Second.
All right, Amanda?
Online voting is open. Motion carried with directors Clausen, Eyestone, Eastham, Williams, Finch, and Hayek voting in favor, and directors Malone abstaining.
Thank you. Next up, negotiated agreement for paraeducators. I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we pass a negotiated agreement between the ICEA and ICCSD for paraeducators 22-23 school year.
Second.
All right, Amanda?
Online voting is open. Motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. And then next up, nutrition services.
I move that we pass the negotiated agreement between the ICSNSA and the ICCSD for nutrition services employees 2022-2023 school year.
Second.
I really wanted to see if you could get through all those letters. That's impressive. All right, Amanda.
Online voting is open. Motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
All right, next up, secretaries.
I move that we pass a negotiated agreement between the ICSUA and ICCSD for school year secretaries 2022-2023 school year.
Second.
Amanda?
Online voting is open. Motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Director Iso, if I could interrupt 1 second. The next one is incorrect. Whoever's going to read those letters, it should be ICSPPA and ICCSD as the two parties to the agreement, not ISE or ICEA, just as a technical correction.
I think I got it. I move we approve the negotiated agreement between the ICSPPA and the ICCSD for physical plant employees 2022-2023.
Second.
Thank you. Amanda?
Online voting is open. Motion carries with all directors voting in favor.
Thank you. That was our quota of voting for the year. We can't take any more votes. So next up, that was a joke, by the way. Next up is our agenda setting. What's not on there is a couple of closed sessions next Tuesday on the 31st. We'll get those out to directors at some point. But the next regular board meeting on June 14th, I can't believe I'm saying that the next board meeting is after school is out, which is crazy to me. But we have our kind of usual suspects on there. Our ICA update is on there, community comment, our consent. We do have our quarterly financial report and our annual asset protection report. A big discussion item around hills and upcoming possibilities down there. Is there other things that we need to get on there?
I do just want to echo from a couple of weeks ago that I'd like to have that boundary discussion. If it doesn't go on this meeting, I won't be able to be at the last meeting in June or the July meeting. And so what I don't want to have it is at a meeting that I'm not at. So I just want to throw that, so if we're not doing it next meeting, if we could not set it for the end of June or the July meeting and put it into August, that's all I want to say about that.
And I would just, on that, I don't know if it, because a lot of times the summer meetings aren't going to get as much. Yeah, they're not going to, people aren't going to see it. So, is this, right, so do we want to wait? And I don't know. I mean, I guess it could go, we could start, I'm sure we're not going to be done with this discussion in one sitting. So maybe we start this summer and keep it going, but that might be something to think about too.
I wonder if we could have a short discussion next meeting, because I suspect it'll say, the discussion will be, we'd like information from the team, and then they could take the rest of the summer to kind of gather that information and then have a more robust discussion about it in August.
Yeah, that would probably be helpful to probably just have a preliminary conversation around some of the ideas you guys are talking about. I think loosely we have some concept potentially of information that would be helpful, but at the same time, maybe fleshing out some of that thinking a little further. And then we can bring back some information following and have a more informative conversation in August. That'd be good to start it off.
And can you remind me again, Matt, when are we going to get our more detailed projections?
I think those are for the fall. Is that correct, Adam? We should get those in the fall. And is that like September or is that more like November? Could you?
Correct. That'll be in the fall. We have to wait until the October count date before those can be finalized. So I would expect the end of October, so probably a first meeting in November, most likely.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right. Sounds good. A couple things on there. Anything, Charlie, do you have something to add?
No, I think it's a good plan, and I think your point is well taken, JP, about having just the full discussion in a more public, at a more public time, yeah.
Matt, anything from you or the team that we need to get on there?
I don't have anything additional to add. I was just looking through our list here, and I moved up the boundary conversation then to the 14th. I think you mentioned the Hills discussion item as well, or that's already listed on there. And then I see that there's a legislative update on there, and we probably can give an effective legislative update by that point. Know that the voucher bill looks like that's dead and not going to continue, but there's still some other things they're working through yet. So we can give an effective legislative update at that point as well.
Final wrap-up one would be good,
Yeah.
I think. All right. Sounds good. If there's nothing else, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Amanda.